All right. Hello, everybody. Let me get Danielle here. Let's see. There she is.
Hello. Good
Good
morning.
morning. And for those of you that are not on the East Coast, afternoon, what is it they used to say in the Truman Show? Good morning, good evening, and good night.
Yep.
Right? All right.
Or I think he said good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Yes.
And then you're like,
Yeah. All
we're
right.
dating ourselves,
I,
Jenny.
yeah, yeah. That's okay. That's okay. Wisdom comes with age. So good.
For sure.
All right, so everybody, welcome to our first. I don't know. I don't want to say episode because it's on a podcast, but our first Liquid Lounge. So just really quickly, what this is, we want you all to get to know all of the people that are involved in Liquid Motion, the master trainers, and all of the people that really make Liquid Motion click. But more importantly, I want you to get to know the other instructors, so that you are excited to learn from them, and also you realize that they bring so much wisdom that that I could never bring, and I want you to be able to experience certifications and classes and workshops and all those things. So this is Danielle Mayzes McCarthy. You guys probably just know her as Danielle Mayzes, but that's okay. And we are going to be having a conversation, and I'm going to be asking her some questions. And at any time, you guys can ask questions. You don't need to, just kind of watch, but just interact with us, and we will do our best to interact with you. Before we get started, Danielle, did you want to add anything about just kind of what the Liquid Lounge is at the moment?
Right now it's all new, so we'll see what it evolves into. But yeah, Jenny and I were discussing um, how, honestly, we've been talking about this for years, that people think of Liquid Motion as Jeni Janover's Liquid Motion. In fact, that's what the logo used to say. And despite the fact that we took her name off of it, it's still associated with her because she's the one who was out there pounding the pavement since the very beginning, getting the word out about it. So, and now bringing in new instructors, and we have a whole team of people, and a lot of people don't necessarily know who those are unless they regularly interact with those other trainers. So this is a way for us to introduce ourselves and show you a little bit of our personality, and just kind of get to know us outside of, if you were to take a class with us, just having a conversation and getting to know a little bit of our insights. So hopefully you find it enjoyable. Maybe you learn something from it. Maybe you want to come take a class with one of the trainers, but ultimately it's more for just you to understand that there's a whole team around Jenny in Liquid Motion.
Yes, there definitely is. It really does take a village or a massive city. Anyway, all right. Thank you, Ted John 56. All right, I'm going to start with these questions, and we'll just kind of see where this goes. So before we kind of dive into your relationship with Liquid Motion, there are probably a lot of people out there who have no idea what Liquid Motion is.
Mhm.
And without getting too overly detailed, because we know it is difficult to explain what this is, what would kind of be your elevator pitch, or how would you, if you were just kind of met someone on the street and they were asking about it, how would you explain Liquid Motion to somebody who does not know anything about what it is that we do?
Yeah. Well, keeping it very simple, I would say liquid motion is a dance methodology that focuses on sensual movement. It uses floor work as a building block to develop foundations of movement, as opposed to teaching choreography or focusing on one set of skills. You're learning a whole methodology, which allows you to approach any movement, any dance, any style anything in your whole life. I mean, like literally just getting out of bed in the morning, you have the body awareness from the techniques you learn in liquid motion. And that's something that I think caters to everybody of every level. So it's something that anyone can get value out of, whether you're a teacher, whether you have never danced a day in your life. I had a student, I think it was 2 weeks ago, recently said, everybody should be doing this. And I was like, you are right. Everybody should be doing it. But not everybody is, because some people are afraid of it. So um, it really is a movement methodology for everybody.
Yeah. I agreed. And I could not have said that better myself. So that's awesome. It is a little hard to explain sometimes.
It is very hard to explain. Usually when someone, if I'm like wearing my liquid sweatshirt at Starbucks and someone's like, oh, liquid, what does that mean? I'm like, oh, it's for a
Yeah.
dance company.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get involved in the whole conversation. But if I know that they're like interested in dance, then I'll definitely
Yeah.
go into more detail, because it is something that I do seriously believe that literally anyone can do.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. Totally agree. All right. So I feel like this is the stuff that everyone is going to find extremely entertaining. So let's dive in. How did you get introduced to liquid motion and I guess me?
Well, some people will know this story, and I won't go into all the details of it, but um, I've been dancing for my whole life. I've been teaching for like 25 years, but earlier in my pole dancing career, so this was like I started pole in 2006. Um, I decided I wanted to develop the pole community in Boston and bring everybody together and have a showcase. And it was great because I would invite all these other studios in the area, and it became this whole New England thing. It went from a Boston thing to a New England thing.
Mm,
So I back in 2011, it was February of 2011. I hosted an event in Boston. Jeni and her studio came down and performed, and we had emailed back and forth, so I knew who she was. And then we started to get to know each other at the showcase, but of course, it was like crazy and busy, and we had a lot of stuff going on, so we didn't really get to hang out. And then we just became like Facebook friends, so we would communicate. Next thing you know, we're like best friends. I don't even know how it happened. It was like by the springtime we were like two peas in a pod.
yeah.
So, meeting in New York, going to shows, training together, meeting at workshops. So I really got to see the beginnings of liquid motion, because Jeni had just started liquid motion at that point.
Mm,
So I got to see kind of like how she was teaching it and organizing it, but I never actually got to take a class because she lives in Connecticut and I live in Massachusetts. So um, after a while of her saying, I want to come up and teach a workshop, and I said, okay, we'll get it on the schedule. Finally, for my birthday, it was like her birthday present to me. She came up and she taught some workshops at the studio where I was working at the time. And that was my first actual introduction to taking the liquid motion workshop. And I am not exaggerating when I say my mood and my outlook on my day changed from like it was literally like 180-degree flip from the way I walked into that studio from when I left.
yeah.
And I know exactly where the moment is where that flip switched. There was a moment we were doing like a free dance, and you had brought these beautiful satin sheets, and you were like, I don't care what you do with it. You can lay on top of it, you can lay under it. And I was like, I'm going to hide because I'm not in a good mood. I am up early. It was like an early morning too.
Yeah. I remember
And
that.
so you taught us these techniques and these moves, and I was like, I feel really awkward right now. I'm not in a great mood. So I put the sheet over me, and we danced to like a 6-minute song. And by the time that 6-minute song was over, I don't even know what happened. Like I was just in the moment. You know, like I felt the sheet on me. I was under it. I was on top of it. I was wrapped around it. It was amazing. And I just remember having that moment of like, there is nothing more important than the present.
Mm-hmm.
So leaving everything behind, no matter I got out of the wrong bed, the wrong side of the bed, it doesn't matter what happened earlier.
Mm-hmm.
When you're dancing, let that be a time for you.
Yeah.
And up to that point, I had been so judgmental to my own dancing. And I think that was just kind of a result of the system that I grew up in between ballet and being a dance major in college and then being a competitive ballroom dancer. It's really hard not to judge yourself because you want to be able to be perfect and get the right scores. And in that moment, it didn't matter. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. No one was looking at me. Even if they did, I wouldn't have known because I wasn't paying any attention. It was all about me. And that was a really intense moment for me, and it really changed that was the moment that changed my entire life.
Oh, I guess I should bring back the bed sheets.
Yes, did
Brandon,
you order
go
some?
find those bed sheets.
Yeah, I think you ordered
I
some.
did, and then Brandon said that they were upstairs, which I don't believe. They're in the garage. So we'll do a whole other interview about the bed sheets. But it was it was definitely I remember that class too, and I remember like I felt like a sensual drill sergeant. Like,
Yeah.
you kind of led me into a question that was I was going to ask you a little later, but I think it's kind of the perfect time for it. As somebody who has been dancing for your entire life, literally, what was it like after that moment? And you had this emotional kind of breakthrough, and and you said, yeah, it changed your whole life. But I think we all know that, like, those kind of aha moments sometimes we loses their validity when
Mhm.
other aspects of what we do kind of come into the equation.
Yeah.
So what did you feel like what did you feel Liquid Motion had to offer you as somebody coming in with so
Mhm.
much dance experience on all different types of dance, and all also different ways of teaching dance, right? I think, what did you feel Liquid Motion had to offer? And then I guess an additional question was, which is not on our question sheet, so I hate to spring this one on you. But how did you feel you could help Liquid Motion? Because if people don't know, you are a huge, huge, huge integral part of the building of this company, of the brand, and of the methodology. So, two questions, I guess. Question one, what did you feel Liquid Motion had to offer for you that you didn't already know in a lifetime of dance education? And then how do you feel your skill set was important to bring to Liquid Motion? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? I'm making sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think as far as the first question, I'll answer that one first because it's as you know, building habits is really difficult. And the same is true for building a mindset. You can have a complete 180 one day, and then the next day you're just not motivated to have that mindset anymore for whatever reason,
Right.
because you need to be in the moment to trigger it. So it's an emotional response, honestly. So I think it's really important to hold on to those feelings, and especially in the world of social media where we video everything and then we judge the value of our practice based on whether or not we got a good video. I mean, this was well beyond any, like, Instagram existed, but we didn't post everything we did on Instagram back then.
No, it was like
So
a lot of cat.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, you're posting like artistic photos or, something stupid and blurry. And now everyone wants to video what they're doing, which there's nothing wrong with because there's value in it.
Right.
But if you don't hold on to the feeling of why you connected to the movement in that way and why you enjoyed that practice or why you didn't enjoy it or whatever, that feeling is so much stronger than any video evidence that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't remember everything you taught in that
Right.
workshop, but 13 years later, I can still put on that song and feel the way I felt in that moment. I can recall it,
That's
you know?
that's amazing.
And I think that that's important to remember because that is what's going to motivate you to continue to do the work to break down the barriers of why you're so afraid to be judged,
Yeah.
or why you're so afraid to not do something right or to fail. And I think that is really what liquid motion gave me, is that I had a dance background, I had a lot of technical knowledge, but time and time again, what I always heard was, you are technically perfect, but you are boring to watch because you're too controlled. And that, I could not figure out how to get out of being too in control because I was trying so hard to be
Mm-hmm.
perfect. And what liquid gave me is the body awareness to step out of, what do I think this looks like?
Mm-hmm.
And how does it actually feel? And enjoy that and not care so much about how it looks.
It's
Now that I'm involved a little bit more in social media, I do care more about how things look, but I've already switched the mindset. I've already done
right.
the work
Right.
to be able to feel it and see it at the same time,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Yes. I feel like I should make a note. I feel like we should do a whole nother interview about like reality versus Instagram, but like literally, um,
Yeah.
because I do think, not to get off track, as I want to circle back to the question, but I think it's important for viewers out there to understand that there is, if you can have a healthy relationship with social media, it can be your stage. If you don't, I think that, especially in pole, and this is how I met you,
Yeah.
right? I wanted a place to perform. And I think in the pole world, there's not a lot of performance opportunities for people so that they compete. The problem with that is when you compete, you now are subjecting yourself to really what you were just talking about, which is that technical eye, that technical vantage point. And with social media, people should remember that that is their stage and it's their stage. So what they put on that stage is valuable. And I
Mhm.
think I just, it's important for people to understand that. I do want to come back to you now utilizing your stage more.
Mhm.
But before we come back to that, the part two of the
Yeah.
question.
Part two. So, to add to what I said earlier about what liquid motion has given me, it's not just that it's given me that feeling, but also it's giving me the ability to explore more of a freestyle component without
Yeah.
judgment. And because I do have the tools, I have vocabulary, I know I have all those things, but it gives me a method, and it almost like funnels the my energy in one direction, so it's easier for me to now explore and be okay with that,
Mm-hmm.
just exploring it. So going back to, I remember back in the old days of liquid motion before the certification program, when we were writing workshops together,
Mm-hmm.
and we were running a workshop called 5 for 4, which essentially became the additional foundation library in the 1.0 manual.
Yeah.
And we were in the computer lab of Super Shag Dance Studio
Oh
in Boston.
my God.
Do you
I
remember that?
do now. Oh,
On carpet floor, we had like rows of computers on either side of us. And we're doing side crunch variations. And I'm standing up looking at you, and then I get on the floor and you look at me.
oh my God.
Like, okay, so what are we doing? Let's put it together.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, but it's crazy when people are like, how did you start? Well, Danielle just said it.
On a carpeted floor in a computer lab of a condo building. And neither of us lived in the condo
No,
building either.
I know. Jesus, we're just going to borrow your floor for a moment. Oh my God. Oh my God.
So I always think back to those first moments where you and I we were so inspired to put our brains together because honestly, like, we had very different backgrounds, but they were similar, but very different because yours was more like you did ballet to a certain point and you did figure
Mhm.
skating. And then you went into sculpture where I did ballet and then I veered more into like jazz and tap and modern,
Mhm.
and I became a dance major. So I have all of this different knowledge that kind of pulls from a variety of a long term, but I never did any sort of sports like figure skating or anything like that. So I don't have that frame of reference. But I do have a a dance education bachelor's
Yeah.
degree, which gave me some tools to explain, to write out things, to organize methodologies, and be able to help you build. Because your brain is, like, you have all these things going on, but like, nobody's really great at understanding
Right.
exactly what is going on in their brain until they put it down on
Right.
paper. And if you don't know how to put it down on paper, then it just stays in your
Mhm.
brain. So I think that you and I had such a successful relationship with building liquid motion because I was able to understand what came out of your brain and onto that paper because I had a background in dance. So
Right.
you and I had a common language. And I would say, oh, this is just like Bartenia fundamentals. And you're like, I don't know what that is, but yes.
Exactly.
So, and it was really cool because then I was able to go and teach to university students who are studying dance
Hmm.
training and show them liquid motion. And they go, wow, this is like Bartenia fundamentals. And I was like, yes, you get it. Thank you.
Right. Right. I remember that.
So,
That was so. That was, oh my God. I was
yeah.
like, what?
So
So
it's really been interesting, I think, to see how our brains kind of merged into one. Because now I don't even remember what what you brought and what I brought.
I
It
don't
it all
either.
just kind of feels like it's one.
Yeah.
We
Yeah. And we,
complete each other.
yeah. And all those iterations of the manuals, I still have
Hmm.
all of them.
Me
It's
too.
it's insane.
Hmm.
Like,
Yep.
oh my God, insane.
They're in my attic.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, all right. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So, as you guys have heard, Danielle is and was a huge integral part of the building of the brand and the methodology. Um, and so you've been, a huge part kind of behind the scenes. But, in the last year, especially in the last few months, you've kind of stepped back onto the stage of, that is the public eye. So with that in mind, now that you are, you're teaching more certifications and you are, on social media and you are posting videos, um, what what are a few things that you want people to know about you, when it comes to, I guess more specifically, what do you want people to know about you if they were to come and take a training with you or a class with you? What is something that, or some things that you think are important for them to know?
Mm. So, well, the first thing is, I think what really triggered me to get back on to like promoting myself as part of the Liquid Motion team was going to PoleCon and performing at PoleCon specifically because I said a year before that I was going to perform and then I tried not to, and you were like, no, this will be good for you, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll submit. So I was really lucky that I was able to perform at PoleCon, because I have terrible stage fright. So I get very, very, very nervous when I'm in front of a lot of people, especially when it comes to performing. So I usually just kind of like crash and burn when I perform. At least like, this is how I
Right.
feel in my head. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. So forcing myself to kind of put myself out there on social media has been almost like cathartic for me because I'm a very private person. I am fairly shy when it comes to crowds. So you and I are very different in that I, when I teach, that is like I am performing.
Mhm.
Like I put on my stage face and I go, okay, we're doing this. Um, and then I have to go and take a break and not talk to anybody for a while.
Yeah.
So when it's not that I am pretending, because I love teaching. I love teaching even more than performing because it allows me to connect. So what I want people to know about me is that when I am teaching, I'm going to give you my full energy, 100% and more. If you have questions, I'm going to get that answer for you. Like I am very curious minded. So if you have a question, I'm not going to say, I'm not sure. Let me think about that. I'm going to say, wow, that's a really great question. Oh my goodness. I'm really excited to try that out now. And I might even try it out right then.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've done it before because you can learn so much from your students. So, what I want people to know if they take a training with me is talk to me, ask me questions, because I think as a trainer, it is so important to learn from your students.
Mhm.
And because it's a two-way street, I can only give you what you give me and vice versa. So, um, as you know, I bring a lot of dance background to the table. So I do have a lot of knowledge and I have basically the entire history of liquid motion because I saw it from the ground up. So if you have questions about anything, anything at all regarding liquid motion, I can answer it,
Probably better
which
than I can, in all honesty.
in sometimes, yes. So I think that for me, I just really love getting into the nuances. So the 1.0 training, I love all the trainings, but the 1.0 training is my favorite because it really allows you to get into the nitty gritty details of the fundamentals and those foundational skills that you are going to take into every single part of your life.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I really think that it's important to communicate with each other. So, like examination process and stuff like that, being able to guide people and see those aha moments while they are teaching in real time,
Mhm.
that just it makes me so happy. It fills my heart. So I think that if you are going to take a training with me, come in ready to talk to me,
Yeah.
ready to learn, ready to be open-minded, and ready to ask questions because that is my bread and butter. I love that stuff.
Hmm.
Like don't be scared of me.
Yeah.
Because if you don't talk to me, then I'm going to think that I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah. I'm laughing because that's like it's like the teacher like I forget what the word I'm looking for, but it's like I feel like all teachers go through that where they're like, why aren't they talking? Why
Yeah.
aren't they laughing? Right? Like, and that's usually when I say something like really inappropriate, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh, I'm just making it worse.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
yeah. I want to add to that because I think um, people and this might sound like a sales pitch to all of you watching, and it's really not. Um, and I liquid motion, the level 1 certification, like honestly, truth be told, were things that my body really naturally did. And because of that, it was there was a few things that I was like, oh, this is going to help people like this, the non-technical, the non-anatomical approach
Uh-huh.
is going to be really helpful. But it's because it was things that my body naturally did. Danielle, she calls it speaking Jennyese. And it really is it's a thing, and that's sounding arrogant or like an egomaniac. But Danielle, in my opinion, really is better at teaching the level 1 content than I am. And same with Brandon and these trainers and training and all these people, and Karen and Kim and Colleen. But Danielle specifically, because Danielle was the one who when we were in the computer lab on the carpet and I said, I'm doing this, she'd be like, no, you're not. You're doing this. And what Danielle taught me through her dance education was really how to look and deconstruct. And that ability of her to do that kind of became my superpower. It was like, oh, okay, wait a second. I need to look at it like this. And so when you go to a level 1 training, the movement itself is simple in the sense of it's not easy, but it doesn't have a lot of moving pieces. And that is by design, because when something doesn't have a lot of moving pieces, you can see the structure of it, right? So Danielle is able to take the most simple thing, and when she does it, it's kind of like you just go like this, like seriously. And like I watch people do it, and meanwhile I know inside you're terrified. You're like, am I doing it right? Especially if I'm in the room, you're like, am I gonna get a lecture from her later? Right? Like I know all that is happening.
Mm-hmm.
But when people watch her move, it really is amazing. And I think the other thing why Danielle is such a beautiful mover and performer, and I do want you to talk about this for a minute, and again, it's not on here, it's kind of more of an organic question, was Danielle has a background in ballroom, professional ballroom dancing. And I think that there is a correlation between how Danielle performs, whether it's in front of 2 people or 2,000 people. That ballroom background really does come into play. The way that I first noticed it, and even our photographer, Michelle Leroy, was with your hand movement. And I think that in and of itself is what I always know when I see one of your students, because their hand articulation is like art. So I feel like what you bring to the table is a very different approach to liquid motion, um, that I will never have that vocabulary or that background to bring. And I honestly think people out there, if you have an opportunity to take a certification, a level 1 with, well, any certification with me or Danielle, take it with Danielle. Because when we get to the wall dance, I'm going to be like, yeah, I really suck at teaching this. Like, is how
She
many times
doesn't.
we
She
have
doesn't.
goddamn wall dance? A lot, right? A lot. So anyway, so yeah, okay. So did we get through those questions?
Yeah. Oh, well, also I want to add one thing too. And I didn't say this earlier, but I thought of it as you were talking. There's another reason why I think I'm so good at teaching 1.0, and I think it's also because I have a history of
Oh,
severe back issues and a lot of chronic pain. So I think 1.0 is where it's like a make or break for a lot of people. Like
yeah,
they're either going to love it or they're going to be like, oh my God, this is um I just don't know if I can spend that much time on the floor because
yeah,
it's a lot. It's very intense. So and of course, you know, by the time they get to the end of the cert, they're like, yeah, of course we love it. But there's some moves that they're so easy, but the repetition and the shapes that your body is making, you're learning something from scratch. And when you're in that hard pelvic tilt that's so you know, signature to liquid motion, it's very easy to get back pain. So I one thing that I bring to the table specific to me that I don't think anybody else really focuses on
yeah, yeah,
is how to protect your spine.
yeah. Agreed, 100%.
And I mean, yeah, we all talk about those, but like that is something I am so passionate about because if I don't constantly think about it while I'm moving, I will throw my back out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want anybody to feel that and suffer in silence. So I always share my tips and tricks for how do I work around my own issues and how do I make myself stronger so that I don't have those issues in the future. And I share those with you guys because
Yeah,
back pain sucks,
yeah.
man.
Yeah. I mean, pain in general. And actually, that was a beautiful segue. And no, we did not plan that. In my next question, because there are a lot of misconceptions about what liquid motion is, and I think just kind of thinking how I want to phrase this. I guess maybe this isn't quite the right time for this question, but
No
what
time like the present, Jenny. Just
okay,
go for it.
yes. So there's a lot of misconceptions about really what liquid motion is, but there's even more misconceptions about what our certification is. So I guess from a business standpoint, yes, and this might sound like a sales pitch, but it really is us just trying to kind of let people see how much is there. What is it that you feel makes the liquid motion certification program, I don't want to even say stand out from others, because it's not in one, it's either or, right? I mean,
Mhm.
more education, the better.
Right.
Yeah. So like all the certifications. But for you, what do you feel like just really makes the liquid motion certification stand out? And why should people invest in something that is expensive?
Yeah.
What is it? What are they going to get out of it? Um, and in your own opinion, which might be different
Mhm.
than, because I'm going to be like, you know. So
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. So there's a couple of things. Movement wise, I think the biggest thing is the understanding the methodology and how it applies to movement beyond, because so many times you take a workshop, a class, a certification, and you learn the moves and then you're like, okay, now what?
mhm,
And with liquid motion, because the moves are just the icing on the cake, where it's really just the method for
yeah,
communicating, the vehicle, for showing the methodology, right? So for me, the
it's the French fry
methodology,
ketchup.
exactly, the methodology is really the takeaway.
Yeah,
Like if you understand the takeaway of how do I organize my movement, then I mean, the options are endless.
yeah,
Honestly, you could apply that to anything. So, movement wise, I think that is the biggest value. But then, if you're a teacher, or if you want to continue your own education by teaching yourself, so technically you are a teacher, you're just teaching only yourself,
mhm,
the resources and the organization structure of being able to continue that education beyond the certification, and the organization of, how do I plan a class? I organize my own training the way I organize a class, understanding how to deconstruct movement so you can do multi-level classes. Like,
mhm,
these are all things that, people say, why do I have to show you that I can teach this move? Well, because number one, you say you don't want to teach now, but I guarantee you, when you start looking through all these resources and when you start actually practicing, you're going to want to share it.
yeah,
So we need to see that you can do that. But also, if you've ever tried to explain anything to anybody, you'll see how much you understand it yourself. You think you understand it, and then you try to explain it, and you're like, huh, maybe I don't understand it as much. And then that's either going to inspire you to go and study it more, or it's going to say, ooh, maybe I should be teaching
yeah,
this. But
yeah,
either way, you learn,
yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
So I think that, as far as the liquid motion program, because there are, like you said, I always tell people, like, honestly, it's up to your own, like, how much money that you have to spend on
Mhm,
trainings. But if you can get a training with a person or a methodology or a program that you admire, do it, because you're only going to benefit from it. Even if you hate it, at least
yep,
you learned what you didn't
mhm,
like, and you'll still be able to take something, even
mhm,
if it's just one thing, away from that.
mhm,
So I think it's important that you invest in yourself as much as you can, especially if you're teaching. But when it comes to liquid motion, if you don't walk away understanding that it is a method and not about the moves, then you have missed the point.
mhm. Yeah, and I think that that's it's such a good point. It is that the methodology is this abstract kind of thing, right? That
Mhm.
floats around. And I do think that for newer people who are coming into a movement practice, I think sometimes that abstract can be very difficult. And so that is why, Danielle and I created the moves, right? Because that is this tactile thing. But I do think that, you know, you're able to get people who are newer to movement to see these nuances that they can hopefully translate into other things. And I just want to point out, and I think it's actually really funny, because Danielle said, like, you may not want to teach, but every single one of our trainers in training, master trainers in training right now, all came into their certification being like, I have no intention of teaching. And now they are the 3 people out of over 1,000 who have been selected to be the master trainer in training. So, be careful what you think or what you don't want to do. But
Yep.
I think that that's also, like, going back to Danielle, what you said is that powerful emotional experience um, is so powerful. And I think, with Nikki and Ro and Andrea and yourself and Karen and Colleen, and Kim, all of these people, and Brandon, all of these people who came into Liquid Motion, um, had I don't even want to say it's not a chip on their shoulder, had a doubt. What is this,
Mhm.
right? Like, what am I going to get out of this thing?
Mhm.
And when they left, it was it was maybe they couldn't even pinpoint what it was, but they were just like, I need more of that.
Mhm.
And I do think that you and the other master trainers and the trainers in training, because you've had that, I think the word is visceral, is that the right word, right? That visceral experience. um you bring a very different element than I ever will to the trainings, because I didn't really have that experience because I created it. So to me, it's kind of like, I don't know. So I just think that that's really important for people to understand. um I'm just looking at my notes here because I know we're going way past. So let's do this. Let's just quickly, let's skip the questions about the train the trainer for a minute, because we can always do that in another one. I want to get to, so for those of you out there who don't know, the Liquid Motion community, what we're referring to is basically, it's a Facebook group. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the only places on Facebook that's not toxic anymore. But there's over 1,000 people in our community. All of them have taken at least one certification. It is a closed and private group, and so we talk to them. It's a very active group. People are always posting videos and music and talking and sharing, and it's really a beautiful place. So we went in before we did this interview to ask them if they had any questions. What did they want to hear? And I want to make sure that I at least get one of those questions in.
Mhm.
So this is from, I'm just going to read this exactly. This is from the Liquid Motion community itself. And their question for you was, what are some mistakes you've made as an instructor? Or what would you do differently as a seasoned instructor versus a newer one? So let's start with part one, and then I'll reread the second part. So what are some mistakes that you've made as an instructor? Yay, because
Um,
I want to
I
talk
mean,
about
I don't know if they specifically mean liquid motion, but I think that you can learn from any mistakes that you make, regardless of whether it's teaching liquid motion or some other
that.
thing. But I mean, I've been teaching for 25 years plus, so I've
I was
made a
going to say, you
lot
made a
of
few mistakes.
mistakes. I mean, like I thank God I don't have a bullet point list in my brain of all of them, because I would never teach again if I did. But I think that like as as you guys know, teaching, whether you've done it or not, you have to know that it is challenging. So you're going to go in and say, okay, as a teacher, I want to show them I know everything. I know all the moves. I can answer every single question. And if you can't, what do? You make up an answer, you walk away. Like you have to have a response. So of course we make mistakes because there are times when I have not had an answer when someone asked a question and I've walked out of that door and said, I don't know if I'm ever going to see that person again because I don't think I helped them. Or there's the time that I was teaching a pole class and I spotted the move on 4 different people and I got hit in the head 4 different times. I mean, that was stupid, right? They were safe, but I was not protecting myself.
Yes. Yes.
There's doing the same move over and over again on the same side and never training my other side. So then when it comes time for me to do it again and I injure myself in the middle of a demonstration, now I'm out
Yeah.
for weeks, months, even a year, because as a teacher, I made the mistake of only showing them my good side.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't make time to train my bad side, and I injured myself and I couldn't do anything anymore. So I think mistakes can come up in lots of different capacities, whether it's not taking care of yourself, whether it's not being honest with your students as to what you want to teach and what you believe you're good at,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody has a niche. Nobody can teach to every single person all the
Mm-hmm.
time. And, I think that also not having the experience is also you're going to lack confidence in how to respond to things. So sometimes it can seem off-putting to someone if you don't have the exact answer they need. And learning how to read the room is a real skill as an instructor.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't call any of those mistakes. I'd call them learning experiences,
Yeah.
because if you go in trying to avoid making mistakes, it's going to make you even more nervous.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to make more mistakes. Have you ever had those days where you're like in a really bad mood and you're wearing like a bathrobe and you just, every time you walk by a doorknob, you get that robe stuck on the bathrobe? And it only happens when you're in a rush and you're in a bad mood,
Yeah.
right? So it's the same thing when you're teaching. If you go in thinking, I can't make mistakes, I can't make mistakes, I can't make mistakes, you are going to make a mistake. It's the seasoned trainer that can recognize that you made the mistake and immediately course correct before it's too late.
Yes.
And that is the most important thing. And guess what? You can't learn that until you make the mistakes.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I think that's the biggest thing is like, I've made every mistake I can
Mm-hmm.
think of. I cannot think of a mistake that someone has told me that they've made where I haven't been like, something similar has happened to me. Like, I've made them all. But I also don't regret that I made those mistakes, because that's what made me better.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say, my biggest regret, so this isn't a mistake, it's a regret. I didn't start taking care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I waited until like I ground myself down into the ground as hard as I could until I couldn't go anymore. And then I just I didn't have the energy, the desire. I was burnt out, I was sore, I was injured. You have to take care of yourself mentally and physically, and you have to take care of your time and set boundaries.
Yes.
And those are the biggest regrets that I have from being a newer instructor, is that I didn't have the boundaries I have now.
Mm-hmm. I
So
want,
set those boundaries early and you'll have a longer
yeah, you
career.
will. I want to circle back to Blue Hour Lisa. Um, so she said, "Can you please post the bedsheet class to Facebook?" So here's the thing. That class was before cell phone cameras were even decent. There you could not take a picture with. I don't even think you could take video back then.
I don't think you could take video.
Yeah, I don't think the camera, it was literally a camera. You couldn't take video with it. So we actually have no footage of those classes. However, Danielle has inspired me. I'm teaching a class on next Thursday at Empowered, thinking I'll bring back the bed sheets, but that's a whole nother post. So I wish we could share those classes, but we literally have no footage at all of those
Yeah,
classes. Um,
we'd have to like set up like an old like video camera. I remember recording my Polesque entry submission on a video camera,
Oh, like,
like a little Sony. Yeah, like a
oh
camcorder.
my God. Now we're dating ourselves. And she also says that we inspire her daily. So thank you
Thank
for
you,
that.
Lisa.
And then she also said, it's taken me months of teaching to finally be able to see the students opposed to being in my head.
So she,
What? I,
I think she means that rather than thinking about what she's teaching, she's actually looking at the students and
uh,
focusing on them,
yes,
right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Exactly, exactly. I think that is a really valid point because we what the student is doing will always dictate what we are going to do next.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're just kind of going through our thing of like, well, this is what I put that I'm going to teach, right? It has nothing to do with what they're doing. They're going to be like, what? What's going on?
Hmm.
So I think that's awesome. So congratulations that you're starting to kind of have that breakthrough. I think that's really great.
Hmm.
We were only going to do this for a half an hour, and we are almost at an hour. So I guess my last question um, is where can people find you in the near future on like what is your social media? When are you teaching? Where are you teaching? What are your certifications? All of the places that they can see you, hear you, and talk to you.
Okay. So first, I am the certification manager for Liquid Motion. So if you have any questions about certifications or Liquid Motion in general, you can email me. My email is Danielle@liquidmotionct.com. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I am Ellie Mae 6. I think it's tagged here on the live somewhere.
Mhm.
Um, I try to post just kind of general thoughts about my own practice, maybe challenges to you that I found helpful in my own practice, um, a little bit of personal history and background, and also some tips and tricks for movement and liquid motion related things. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, that's where I'm most active on social media. Also, if you want to take class with me live, I do teach at Sky High Studios in Marlborough, Massachusetts, every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. It's a liquid motion floor work class. And I teach at North Shore Pole Fitness on Thursday nights. It is a low flow pole class, which is essentially liquid motion pole class. And my next certification that I'm teaching is going to be in Paris. I'm teaching a liquid motion 1.0. I have been trying to get over to Paris since 2020 was when our first Paris cert was scheduled and we had to cancel it because of the lockdown. So we finally have it rescheduled 5 years later. So I'm really excited about that. That's going to be at the Base Studio in Paris. So they're on Instagram as well, Base Studio Paris. And let's see, I'm also going to be assisting the HEAL certification in Stanford. I'll be at PoleCon in May, beginning of June.
Don't you
We're
have a
working on
1.0 coming up
and
too? A live?
it's the one in Paris.
No, but
Yeah.
after that, is there an in-person one?
Yep, I'm going to do an in-person 1.0 in August, which is it has not hit the calendar yet,
Oh,
but
okay.
it will be coming soon for registration. So it's not open yet, but if you're interested in doing an August cert, it's the toward the end of August. And then we have a 2.0 certification that I'm leading in Stanford in October. So have a pretty busy calendar that I'm going to be leading and assisting with.
And
But
and
yes,
I just remembered PoleCon released its schedule today. So
yeah, so go
Danielle
check
will
that
be,
out.
yep, will be assisting in the liquid motion intensive, which
Mhm.
is I think Colleen messaged me. It's either Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. I know she moved the day,
Okay.
but that's going to be a 2.0 theory intensive using 1.0 content. So Danielle is going to be leading that with me. We'll be leading it together. And then also we will be doing other workshops. The pirouette workshop, Danielle is going to be assisting. And then Danielle will also be at the booth. Um, and then Danielle, what's if they have any other questions, they can email the info at, right?
I would say if you have any questions, just general info at is fine because it goes to me and Jenny. But if you want to speak to me directly, I'll probably get the Danielle at liquidmotionct.com. That's my direct email address. We have some spam filters and things like that. It tends to go through my Danielle email address a little bit better than the info at. Sometimes info at triggers the spam filter. So if you have questions for me directly, you can email me there, or you can message me on Instagram as well, because I try to check those messages daily.
Awesome. All right. Well, this has been really fun. I would love to sit here for another hour, but
I know I could do this all day.
yeah, right. I have it that I have to go get ready to teach. So Brandon is going to make an appearance here. Come here for a second, please, to make sure that we end this properly and we save it, because this out of he's like, it'll save automatically. Okay, so we just end it. See, this is where the humor really starts, folks. Okay, so I'm gonna, how do I end it?
We're gonna say goodbye first.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Oh, okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Danielle. Okay, this.